Hi, everybody. So glad you're joining us either live tonight or on YouTube. Many of you are finding us on YouTube. So tonight we have a special guest, the clinical director from Seeking Integrity Los Angeles Treatment Program, Karen Brown, is joining us. And Dr. Rob Stead, he is a little, well, he's not under the weather. He's got a really bad neck injury and it's quite painful. I shouldn't even be saying this on the recording, but anyway, he's fine. He's not got COVID. He's not sick, but he's in a lot of pain and just wasn't up for it. But I'm going to introduce Karen and have her introduce herself more. She's been doing this work for 15 plus years and just does an amazing job clinically with the clients at Seeking Integrity Treatment Program, but also does all of the work with partners from a prodependent lens. If you're a partner or you're joining us and you don't know what prodependence is, it's a very different way of looking at loved ones, meaning, we don't pathologize. In fact, Dr. Rob just did a presentation on Super Saturday Recovery Summit on intherooms.com on prodependence on Saturday. So it was amazing. The video will be up hopefully later this week. But he really talks about there is no such thing as codependence. It's never been in the DSM, et cetera. But he really talks about reframing things and how we can support loved ones. So if you missed out on the Super Saturday Recovery Summit, and you can go to intherooms.com and you'll see the videos hopefully later. Karen, I also wanted to tell you, because Dr. Todd Love did one on ADHD in recovery, and such an important
that would
topic.
Be awesome.
It was an amazing presentation, and I try to keep up on that aspect. And I was blown away by some of the statistics he was sharing, including if you have ADHD and you're a male and it's not treated, your life expectancy is reduced by an average of 13 years. 13
oh my gosh, Tammy, I never heard that.
I hadn't either, but he's done all the research, or you gathered the research, and women it's about 11 years. I mean, it's significant. It's a real thing. And a sponsor telling you can't take any meds, or a treatment program, you can't take any meds, is counterproductive and actually, I think, negatively affecting your life. So anyway, we'll talk more. But anyway, so Karen, tell everybody a little bit about yourself and your work with the clients and everything, and then we'll get to questions.
Okay. Well, first of all, I'm not Rob because I have longer hair than he does. But I have worked for many years. I guess it's around 18 years or so as being a therapist, a mental health specialist, supervisor, certified sex addiction therapist, supervisor, any type of addiction. I've worked in treatment centers and individuals with substance abuse of any type, many different disorders, gambling, things like that. And it was in 2003 or 4, I can't remember anymore, fell across a gentleman named Robert Weiss who said, hey, I think you could do a sex addiction program. So I went, okay, why not? He was an excellent teacher, and ever since then I've been working with men and women in any way I possibly can, whether it is somebody that's coming in because they have an addiction, somebody that I'm working with outside of that has an addiction, or the spouse or partner of anyone. So also work with a couples program of any type, and it's amazing to see how lives can change. And I always get asked, how do you know? How are you going to be sure this time versus it didn't work the last time? And all I know from my heart, everyone, is any type of recovery is going to be, if you work it and you mean it and you're coming from your heart and be honest with it, anything is possible and there is hope. And it's too many times that throughout my life I have seen death because of addictions of any type. And sex addictions or sex love relationship is a process addiction, so it's still the same. And many times it combines with others. So I guess my gamut of studies has been to also work with grief and loss, because I really believe all those things come into play with any type of addiction, whether it's trauma from childhood, trauma as an adult, anything that can occur, is that we have to find a way to cope with it, a way to medicate, a way to run away, or sometimes I say a way to run towards something. And it is my passion. It is what I love to do. And probably non-professional side of you, I am a very grateful and proud mom of 3 and 7 grandchildren. So I have that experience too. So I add that into the mix. So I really am honored to be here tonight, Tami. Thank you very much.
I thank you for being here. And, you know, so we were sharing an email on Saturday morning, right before I did this Super Saturday Recovery Summit, and somebody had said something kind about how, you know, we had helped in their journey as they were, you know, transforming. And Karen sent me this email and she said, this is why we do this work. And I was like, yeah, I mean, I am so passionate about helping others find recovery, helping partners have support. You know, I don't want to throw in the towel, you know, and just go, oh, people are beyond help. I really believe that if people are willing, if they're just willing to step into this space. But I talk to lots of people all the time, you know, and you know, they can give me all the reasons why they can't do this right now, or they, you know, they're just, and I, you know, it's like, you're not willing yet, you know, right. And this is addiction. So whatever form of addiction it takes, there's risk with it. And, you know, I'm always hoping you live long enough to be able to get, you know, recovery and do things different. And I've actually felt sorry for it, because I thought, you know, at the end of my life, I'm going to be incredibly grateful that I've had this recovery journey. And I thought, what happens if I hadn't? I mean, I was in a precarious situation. What happens if I had not, you know, taken the chance of finding recovery? Well, first of all, I'd be dead. But second of all, you know, if I'd lived for any amount of time, you know, would I be going, oh yeah, that all that addiction stuff was so great. And, you know, and I'm so glad I spent all that time and resource money, you know, on that was disconnecting me and keeping me from real relationships. I don't think so. I who knows, but I have often pondered that. What would I have done, or what is it like at the end of your life if you've just frittered away everything, if addiction wins?
Right. And that's what our battle always is. That's why we do what we do. That's why we're here. And we have so many of our peers that are out there throughout the day at nighttime, always doing webinars or drop-ins, so that it's not anything that, you know, it's not a financial thing. It's strictly, if we can spread the word and maybe have people show up, then they can have a life and their family can have them for a very long time. So that is really what our goal is. And that's what we live by. So
yes, we really do try to live it, as well as, I mean, we're seeking integrity. And, you know, if we don't do to the best of our ability, do live in our integrity, you know, I mean, I really think people would pick up on that really quickly. So, and that isn't who we are. I really appreciate that we, you know, that's the name of the company. So,
right. I agree.
And that's that's what we hold, you know, as our guiding principle is, you know, and we talk about it in our team meetings. So we've got some questions. This is from a female. I found out 3.5 years ago that my husband is a sex porn addict for half of our marriage. He has a therapist, and I have a CSAT, APSAT counselor. We have yet to have a formal disclosure. He says time and again how tired he is of dealing with me, and my unhappiness and the state of our relationship, and doesn't know how much more he can deal with it. If he's listening, can you help him understand that until there's a disclosure, at the least, that needs to happen, and I'm still healing?
Wow. I think in my journey, working with a lot of different people, there's so much fear from the person that is acting out. Fear of they've been telling lies for years or years. Maybe it's a kid lie started, whatever. And it's never about the partner. It's never that the partner or the spouse is the problem. It's that we have the addiction, that we are the ones that are acting out. And I think it's just huge fear of, if I put it all out there, then what's going to happen? bottom line, what I think it comes down, I see and I believe in, is they've never had a chance to really put it out there in a safe place and sort of clean all the sludge out that's in there. And I mean, it can cover anything. And then it's also, I'll got to give it the other side. A very good addict in any type of addiction also knows how to delay, how to disguise, how to block, how to make up excuses and reasons until they want the help and support and they're willing to move forward, then they're going to stay stuck where they are. So that's where the best thing that can happen is that friends and support and family and whoever can be involved is somebody that can help reach out and say, you know, you've got to step forward in your recovery. Because once you see recovery, you don't want to be lying anymore and you don't want to act out. And I genuinely believe that's what human beings, they're born not bad, that bad things have happened to them. And so that's what I believe. What do you think, Tami?
Well, I was thinking, because last week I subbed in on the Betrayed Partner drop-in group on Wednesday, and people were using the term recovery, and I tried to mostly be quiet, but finally I went, wait, stop. You know, what I don't even hear, like I'm wondering if there's sobriety yet with this, because I'm like, you found out 3.5 years ago. I hear he's going to a therapist, but I don't hear that he's going to a qualified therapist. I don't hear, here's the measures he's taken to do things differently. So maybe abstinence at best. I look at it, abstinence, sobriety, and then recovery. And recovery, like he wouldn't be going, oh, I lost Karen. That's terrible. That's terrible, you guys. Hang in there. We're going to get Karen back. But he wouldn't be going, oh, I'm so tired of listening to you, you know, and all of that stuff. He'd be going, I need to step into this, and how can I do things differently? And I don't know what the plan is for disclosure, and it shouldn't be just you having to advocate for it. Hopefully your therapist is also doing so. But I'm also wondering what the plan is with his therapist about this. And has he, you know, done his 3 circles? There she comes back. Has he done his, 3 circle? What's his timeline? What has he done? Or is he just going, well, I haven't acted out for 3.5 years. And I guess I don't even know that. So I don't hear any change. And that's a really long time to be hanging around waiting. So I give you kudos for hanging in there. But I also feel like you don't have any, like it's got to be you're in the in between, and you're not going, and then there's going to be disclosure, and this is the foundation from which we can heal. So I'm going to go back to Sex Addiction 101. If he hasn't joined the Sex Addiction 101 work group, there's another one starting October 3rd, 90 minutes, 6 weeks. It's a facility. It's not therapy. It's not treatment. It isn't, but it's educational time and structured support to go through the Sex Addiction 101 workbook. I hear really good things about the guys that do that. Yes. So that would be a start, but that's just a start. But like, I would ask your therapist and his therapist, like have I'd ask for a meeting for the 4 of you, both of your therapists and each of you, to find out what the plan is for disclosure, where he is, when you can plan to have that. But those 2 books that I mentioned, and also Out of the Doghouse, because that is about rebuilding trust. There's 2 versions. Dr. Rob wrote the original, and then he collaborated with Marnie Free for the Christian version, which has biblical context for the text and for the content in there, so whichever version fits for you. But that's how you start to rebuild trust. But what I hear is a relationship that, like Karen said, that is really stuck, because he's going, you're unhappy and I can't fix you, and I'm tired of listening to you, but you're going, I don't see you changing, I don't see you moving forward, I don't see you working towards making this different. So feels like Dr. Rob says this all the time. If this level of help isn't enough, raise it. If he needs to go see his therapist, and hopefully it's a qualified therapist, twice a week, or do the group, the men's sex addiction group with the therapist as well. I mean, whatever, come to our treatment program. That's, you know, we really can help things shift.
Right.
But yeah, that's a long time to be stuck in the in-between. So
It is. And I know I bleeped out on you guys. I don't know when to ozone. But the other piece too is what I have seen so many times is that therapists are really good out there and they're working very hard. Sometimes when you pull together men or women separately, obviously, but put a group of men together, a very small group, and you have them start to trust and bond and get to the secrets of what's going on, they will actually call one another on things. And they'll go, you know, hey, you got to look at it this side or that side. I've seen people that are stuck and afraid and all of that. They're not sure what life will be like if it changes, and that's the unknown, and that's scary. They're not listening to it could be better. But once they're in a group with other men, in this case being male, that can easily help push them along. So they know that they're not being judged and they're listening, and they're also knowing there's somebody else that has the same problem they have. I've seen that help many times.
yeah, you know, and for all of us, you know, we're not condemning the addicts. My goodness, I'm in recovery. Recovery saved my life and gave me everything I value. But what I hear is someone who's really stuck and not believing that things could be different, not doing the basic things to make it different. So if he really is at least abstinent, that means I don't have my go-to acting out behaviors. And if he hasn't switched, because that happens a lot too, where now I'm gaming, I'm watching porn, or I'm eating, or I'm drinking, or whatever. But so I don't have my go-to habits, but I also don't have the tools, you know, that recovery brings me, so that I get the freedom to not have to deal with, you know, all that uncomfortable, unpleasant stuff. So.
And I wish you well. It's a very horrible spot to be in, knowing that obviously you must sincerely love and care for this person to have been sitting there for 3 years waiting. And we always call it riding the roller coaster of, I love you, I hate you, I love you, I hate you, I love you, I hate you. Well, at some point in time, if there's recovery present, that starts to get longer and there's more space in there. But otherwise, it's got to feel crazy. And I call it the crazies. I think I know this, I think I know that. Now I don't know anything. And how could I have made decisions like this? Again, to any partner or spouse, it is not about you. Never find it that it is about you. It's about something probably long before you ever came along, and things you may not know of. A lot of times it's around trauma. So that's just what I see.
Yeah, when partners call me and they start saying, I know I'm codependent, and I go, stop, and they get the whole, you're not codependent. This is not about you. It feels like it is about them.
Yeah.
And oh my gosh, don't we love to blame somebody else? You know what? Yeah, it's them. No, we have an addiction. It's a disease. And so and I always say it's not a reason, it's not an excuse, but it's a reason. So we have to take ownership of, you know, we can do this differently, but we have a disease and there is treatment. So.
I agree. Totally agree.
Next question. Why is chat room fantasy play so toxic for the mind?
So what the person's question is about is why, when they're in chat room and they're fantasizing about the person they're chatting with, so toxic, correct?
So what I went to is, it's like porn with, you know, like I'm all in this fantasy and I'm not in reality, and, you know, dopamine's going ba-boom.
Yeah, there you go. I mean, besides the brain chemistry that's going all over the place at that time, one of the things we talk about with any type of sex addiction is intensity. So the higher the intensity can be, it's just like we call it arousal template. It goes up, it moves up. I'm okay at this level. It's not enough. It's just like drinking. If I start out with a pint, then I've got to go to a larger size. I may end up getting to a gallon before I die. But it is just like any other addiction. It is going to escalate. You are going to have tolerance to the level that you're at, and you're going to look for more things to make it more intense. Typically with sex addiction, most people are looking for intensity versus intimacy. And when I say the word intimacy, in all joking, a lot of times I'll say it does not mean intimate apparel. It means intimacy between two human beings, of sharing and talking and not being afraid to have the other person see inside of them. A lot of times it will be that the person that's the addict may feel like they are so horrible inside, they don't want to allow themselves to be that close to somebody because they will be the ones that can hurt them. And so one of the things that we talk about all the time, and Tammy's known me for, I don't know, 18 years now, Tammy, is it's about vulnerability. Now, I don't want to get hurt, okay? So I don't want to keep being vulnerable and going, okay, yeah, you go ahead. That's the truth. But in order for me to be in recovery and to figure out how I walk that path, I have to become vulnerable. I have to open up with the war that is going on inside of me. And I think that's probably the biggest piece. But the arousal template is huge, and you can fantasize. No one is going to have a bad fantasy. I mean, really, like, why would you waste your time on that? So it just escalates, and people, I call it spinning out, is their mind just keeps going around and round and playing out different scenarios, or even having a conversation in their head like they would when they're on a chat room, or sometimes it's trying to catch someone and bring them in. Like, I want you, I want you, I want you, I want you, stop. I don't think I want you, let me drop you now and let me go. Some people refer to it as the chase. Some people refer to it as power and control. And I need to keep trying to feed me because I need someone to love me. Even if I have a spouse or partner that loves me, I need more people to love me. It feeds who I am. And what we all try to do is work on, that's great, but if you take the addiction away, then you really get to learn who you are. And that person can love you in an amazing way that you've never experienced. So I see it as intensity versus intimacy, and not give that up. It's the biggest medicator there is.
Well, and for all of you addicts that are going, oh my gosh, I can't even imagine being vulnerable, and you like wanting to put your Kevlar suits on, you're missing out. You're like you're missing out. You're doing all the things that push everything away. And what we as human beings crave the most is intimate connection. I always say intimacy, not sex, because sex addicts can have lots of sex with zero intimacy. It's just body parts and getting off and all that. So really very, very different. And so yeah, it's scary. It is. I remember, and I've shared this before, I remember going off to treatment, and I was terrified that it wouldn't work for me, and equally as terrified that it would, because I could not imagine having to deal with life on life's terms without my coping mechanisms. And thank goodness I was willing. All I had to do was be willing, and people showed me what I needed to learn in order to do life differently. So I knew.
That is so true, Tammy. That is, I mean, just, it's fear. It's paralyzing fear. Some people that have had nothing but problems throughout their growing up time, they learned how to be the chameleon. I will show up any way that, Tammy, you want me to be, and I will be your best bud, and I will show up that way because I don't want to be rejected. And it's not anyone's fault. I mean, it's things that happen one way or the other, but I don't know what it means to be real and authentic. So you're talking vulnerability and authenticity. And those are not words that we teach in school. We don't teach our kids that. I'm hoping, I wish one day we would, and have courses like that. But it's a very awkward time. It's much like junior high when you're scared and you don't want anybody to judge who you are and treat you bad and all of that kind of stuff. So exactly right. I agree with you. 100%.
Next question. How can one avoid acting out when one is triggered? When you lose your sense of reason when you are triggered? That's a great question.
There's a couple of things that are very useful tools. One is called the 3-second rule. And that would be, say I'm a female objectifying men. Let's turn this around a little bit, right? If I notice we're human beings, we are born as sexual beings. So that's in us. in a good way, it's there. Somehow it got off kilter, but we're born, you're going to be attracted. You're going to see human beings on this earth. We can't take them away, which means takes your addiction away. But it's more of the, I totally flipped on where I was going with this one. What was that second part of the question?
How can you avoid acting out when you're triggered, once you're triggered, all sense of reason is gone?
Everything goes. 3-second rule. 1001. I distract. I turn away. 1002. And I'm not talking one Tennessee, Mississippi, Arkansas. I'm talking 1002. Then I honor myself as a good person, as a good man or a good woman, a good parent, a good whatever, some way to honor and affirm the value that you have. And then I honor that other person by saying that's probably a really good mom or a very amazing employee or something. So we're taking from someone away from being an object and make them a human being. And that's where you're reaching inside and doing that. So that works many different times. Calling somebody, having things that you put, I'll always say to a man or a woman, is ask yourself a question, is would you say or do what you're thinking about if your spouse or partner was standing right there with you? Would you do that? Bottom line question. And if the answer is no, then don't do it.
One of my thoughts was too, you're right. Once you're triggered and going down that, it's harder. The ball is rolling down the hill. However, I bet you were stressed out, you were hungry. They have in AA and the other 12 steps, HALT, hungry, angry, lonely, or tired. And I made it HALTs or stressed because, if I'm already feeling those things, I'm going to be more vulnerable. So what do I need to do back here to make sure that I'm as calm as I can be, that I'm as in reality as possible, so I'm not, I can get the hangry stuff, so if I'm too hungry, I'm going to be way more vulnerable to something, setting me off. So if I take care of that back here, have a plan. I love what Karen talked about, the 3 seconds, have a plan, practice it before you get into that situation. Because once you're in that situation, it's hard. But if you go, okay, this could be triggering for me, so I'm going to practice the 3 second, I'm going to practice the whole thing. And then I'm going to do the 3 second, and I might call my friend or text my sponsor or whatever I need to do to keep doing something different.
Exactly. And we see it work all the time. One of the things too is to be honest. If you are the person that's being triggered, is be honest with your sponsor if you're working a program, or with your accountability partner or group or whatever it is, therapist. Be honest and tell them, like, hey, I'm starting to see things to get triggered more frequently, and the triggering is lasting longer, fantasy is lasting longer. No one knows how to help you unless you can tell them what's going on, and you can't say it in a wrong way. It's going to always be right as long as you're being open with it. So.
Yeah. And I think you start seeing the patterns of like, okay, every time I'm too hungry, this happens. If I didn't sleep good last night, oh, I noticed that.
Right.
Or if something's happening at work or this, if you start seeing those patterns, that's information. All of that is good data so that you can look at things and you can go, oh, I'm stressed out at work. I'm going to be more vulnerable. So I'm going to do something extra good for me to make sure I stay on the recovery path. I'm going to be hyper vigilant about, I'm going to be more susceptible to triggers. What do I need to do to take care of myself in the moment?
Another thing too is just to add in is a lot of people find a lot of comfort if they have learned some grounding skills so that they can bring themselves down when they start to feel everything, because you feel it within your body as well as your mind. But grounding skills, some meditation, any type of additional practice that you start to practice, so to speak, is going to help you.
I had somebody that said one time that every time they even thought of relapse, they listened to one of the sex, love, and addiction podcasts. I was like, great. Like if you go, I'm going to be vulnerable, I'm going to go do that. If you're
Right.
listening to the podcast or jumping, we've got a zillion of these previously recorded webinars. Do something different so that you aren't just following the trigger. So
Exactly. I agree.
next question. Why do some addicts stay in shame and denial while some immediately find out and want to get better? Any way to kickstart them? Oh man, would that make our job a lot easier if we
I
could
know if
just
they
like
just
find a
check
Kickstarter?
everything. Why do people stay in shame and denial? Usually because they have not worked with anybody to help them bring up what the shame and denial is really about. I'm talking that touchstone issue, those negative core beliefs that you have way down deep inside. And to have somebody help you find those, to identify them, to say them out loud, that's something that's going to help and change. So I think a lot of times those issues have not been addressed, and it's usually because the client or whoever it is has not said them out loud. They're too afraid to say them. So shame and guilt, that's always huge, and it takes a long time. I tell people, leave your bucket of shame at the door. You can pick it up when you leave. And many times you'll hear over and over again that families pass down shame to their children. And so then you have a generational shame that's going on. So it's really in working with somebody is to identify what that shame's about. And every time you act out, whatever it is, because I'm a person in recovery as well, but every time you do something, then that shame thing comes alive. It's part of the cycle of addiction, is that shame and despair that occurs.
But yeah, as far as Kickstarter, I think that there are, for me, I knew I couldn't keep living the way I was. And so I had to be willing to just believe that somebody could help me. And I was willing to try. And, so, and I don't know, I remember sitting in the treatment program I was in, and, they were saying, of the group of us, the odds were not high, let's put it that way,
Right.
of people staying in recovery. And gratefully, I was young at the time, and I've remained in recovery. And, I wanted it bad enough. I wanted to do things differently enough that I was willing, and I was willing to believe when they said, you can do this differently. And so I think there's a little bit of, I do think also, I've shared this with other people too, when the pain of change
Right.
is less than the pain of remaining in the same, pig trough that you're living in, or quicksand that you're living in, when you're ready, then man, embracing it, wholeheartedly, it's totally worth it. So. Okay,
Great.
next question. My husband and I have been celibate 90 days. My husband had a slip at porn 2 weeks ago, and I caught him masturbating today. Here's the rest of the question. I had to jump. Isn't it harder to not be tempted to masturbate or look at porn given the rare opportunity while being celibate? Also, when I ask my husband who or what he was thinking about when he masturbates, he always says me. Is he lying?
Okay, I'm gonna qualify this with, I don't know your husband, so I have no idea whether he's lying or not. I would say that if he's keeping it a secret from you, then he's had a slip and he may be continuing on with that slip, and it may not be about you. I would go back to, he's the only one that can answer that, but once somebody crosses a line, it's real easy to go back into the lies and deceit again. We always say, tell the truth and tell it faster. So it's within the 24 hours, if there's a slip, no more than 24 hours, you need to tell the people that you put on your list. It may be your therapist, your sponsor, your account buddy that's working with you, your spouse, your whoever, so that you are declaring your honesty. And yes, you had a slip, you made a mistake. Doesn't mean you're a bad person. It means that you're being honest about it. So not judging him, I don't know. I have no idea on that answer. But there could be that there's more deceit going on.
Yeah. And I was kind of going, I'm so torn on this one because,
Yeah.
because with this one, it's like, you're asking him a question, he answers, you know, and he's kind of, I feel like he's in a no-win because he probably is lying. I mean, if he was looking at a lot of porn, he's, you know, often people are, you know, pulling up the images, you know, from the porn. So,
Sure.
so then if he tells you, oh, it's only you, you know, he's lying. But if he tells you the truth, that's devastating too. So I would, I would, I would get support for you. I don't know if you're working, I don't know if he's working with a qualified therapist. I don't know what his recovery plan is, you know, because just being celibate and stopping the porn is probably not going to be successful. I mean, I just really don't see people that don't get to those underlying issues like Karen was talking about, you know, being able to do, you know, do recovery. So maybe abstinent, maybe celibate. But what's the plan, you know, if you're at 90 days, is it automatically, you know, you guys are having sex again? Is it, okay, now he looked at porn 2 weeks ago, so the 90 days resets? So I don't know what the plan is, what the purpose, you know, 90 days of abstinence, you know, the thought was, you know, that it resets the brain and theoretically anybody can go without, you know, without doing that.
Dr. Rob says many, many times, you know, I listen to this every Monday night, and many, many times he'll say it takes about a year. It takes about a year for things to start resetting. So it doesn't mean people cannot stay in recovery. It just means they have to be working recovery, because your mind is still going to go back and have something come up, just like anybody that's in recovery for anything. If you're an alcoholic and you're in recovery from drinking, does it ever cross your mind to have a drink? Well, probably so. When you walk into a place and they're serving alcohol, it's going to cross your mind. But can you be honest and tell somebody that? So again, we're not judging him. We have no idea what, but it would be good if, usually in aftercare planning or planning when there's couples therapy going on or things like that, is some people will say abstinent for 90 days. And then what? Is there less time? Does it need to be more time? Is somebody being honest and say, I'm struggling, I'm thinking about this? Usually a relapse occurs prior to the actual behavior, because something is spinning around in someone's mind that's triggering it, and you try to go backwards to find out what it was. Bad day at work, somebody yelled at me, I didn't feel loved, I felt alone, my family wasn't there when I needed them. Whatever the reason is, it usually starts right before the relapse occurs.
Yes.
And in this case, I know you're saying a slip, so.
Yeah. Well, and I say that all the time, it's like the you know, the trigger was before, and, you know, it isn't like the relapse happens right when the relapse happens. It's like, no, it happened in your brain. You've already given yourself permission. You've gone down that path. So, next question. My SA husband has been working with a CSAT since May, abstinent since August. I've been struggling with him not getting my trauma. Yesterday, I found out he gave his affair partner our address when COVID was starting and told her if things got bad, she could come to our home to live. His response was a simple okay when I expressed my horror that he intended for her to live in our home with us. I almost have no words to describe how painful this behavior is. How long until they feel remorse and empathy?
So he's in recovery though, right now.
Well, he's been working with a CSAT since May, so I don't hear recovery, but working on it, abstinent since August. But at the beginning of COVID, he had given the affair partner the address so the affair partner could come live with them, and she just found out about this, and you know, so the incident with the address happened before, but he's not understanding how
that would be
awful this is.
Yeah, I'm thinking that would just be wrong. I mean, I put all the other words with it is, so if I didn't know and I just said, oh, this poor person, because I'm acting out, this poor person needs help, and I'm bringing her or him in, I'm sure that any type of sexual behavior would not stop. So that's wrong, and also can put a person in danger of having a home address. And, you know, sometimes I have seen people that have partners or affair partners that are very possessive and believe that they can create a problem in the marriage enough that this person will want to leave the marriage. And a lot of bad things come from that. So I've never quite heard a story like that, but it's...
But the question is, how long until they feel remorse and empathy? And that really, I mean, like, it's amazing to me how much the guys that come, many, not all, but many of the guys that come to Seeking Integrity treatment program in 14 days, or maybe they extend for a week, but they leave in a different place. I've had partners, this is what's really important. I've had partners who have contacted me. One, it was, I don't remember, within a couple weeks of after he got out of treatment. And she was like, I know it's early, but I can tell, he's changed. So trying to do that outside, and I don't know how often he's seeing his CSAT therapist, but
Yeah.
up the level of care. We said it before. If he's only seeing his CSAT once a week, and that's all he's doing, then you're going to wait years. I'm just being honest. If he's, going to multiple men's groups every week, preferably every day, working with his sponsor, he's going to the men's, group therapy that the CSAT has as well, that's going to compress the time. So but if he is going to his therapist once a week for 50 minutes and he's got, issues, and he's talking about what happened this week, and he's never getting to those underlying issues that Karen was talking about, you're in for, unfortunately, a long haul. One of the things that Karen mentioned too is being in a group with men. They start to, call each other on things, and, they start to get empathy for each other, on things. So to me, it feels like he needs a higher level of help, whatever that is.
I agree. I agree. And one of the things that is always asked, is, do you love your partner or spouse? Just case closed. Do you? And if the answer is yes, then do you want your life to be different? Because, it's no point to have somebody come in if they're going to fight the whole time, or to see a therapist if they're just lying and acting out on the side. I mean, that's wasting people's time and money and everything else that goes along with it, because they very well are continuing on in their addiction. Now, I know it sounds like there was some boundaries put up and things like that, but this is not something you can take back. The person has the address. It's not something you can undo. And I just wonder also if, and reminder to anyone out there that thinks they need to see the affair partner to make sure they break it off. No way do you go and see them. If you do, it's like, I don't want to hurt their feelings. I want to, just tell them, and I'm sorry. And it's like, no, that's a relapse waiting to happen right there. And I always want to know if someone truly has remorse. That tells anybody something very different about the care of a person if there really is no remorse for what's going on. So without being therapeutic, that's what I'm saying.
So the next one, husband states transsexuals as part of progression to his porn and escort searching. He's heterosexual, wants to stay married, doing all the work he's supposed to, disclosure for early next month. He's eager for disclosure. Question, my highly trained CSAT thinks there's some symbolic theme to him reaching out to transsexual escorts on Mother's Day, wedding anniversary, and his bachelor party 4 years ago. All were transsexual escorts minus the anniversary date. What's your take on this? This sounds
Very
like a doctor. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. It's a very interesting thing. I see many people that, I guess my question back is, are there any drugs involved? Is there anything else that's going on during that time that would say only, at this event? Have I seen people have, let's say, if they're male and they have, a mother or father issue, is that they're triggered and they look for a transsexual because it's both. It gives them the feeling of both at that point in time. Now, also, is it true? Always ask, is it true that the only time that's when they would seek a transsexual escort or affair partner, whatever you want to call it, is only during those holiday things. I'd really want to know if that's the truth, or if there's other times that this is going on, because that presents itself in a very different way. But definitely, he needs to have help and understanding why he's acting not so much on, it doesn't matter if somebody's transsexual or straight or gay or bisexual or anything like that. None of that makes a difference. The fact is he's connecting acting out to certain events. And what is he missing that he needs to medicate for? Or what is that pain that he needs to go outside of his marriage to seek somebody out that puts him in a dangerous situation? And I would very much recommend that he needs to work with somebody to really get deep and find out what's going on. I don't think we have an answer to that, but he needs to work on it to find that answer and find what the association is.
Well, and so I'm gonna two things, suggest that you go to Dr. David's webinar on Wednesday, but his therapist also could contact Dr. David or Dr. Rob. They do case consultations, at no charge with other professionals, like 15 minutes just to kind of go, here's what I'm thinking. Dr. Rob also has a professional peer support group every Tuesday, and there's a number of therapists who bring these kind of cases anonymously, up and discuss. So they're getting the best information and getting their peer support to help, to make sure that they're on track with things. I agree with Karen, all those dates and everything. I also saw, his progression to porn. So I'm betting he doesn't just watch porn on those occasions. So there could be more, but want to let you know that your husband's professional, there's support, for him or her too. So.
Right. Definitely.
Okay. Next question. How long does it take for empathy, sitting with me, my pain versus internalizing it and feeling like he keeps messing up? June 9th was discovery. I am so sorry. And unfortunately that is so new. So disclosure soon. That's good. Says he's sober and doing the work. Sometimes I feel it's checking the boxes, eager in programs, CSAP, but not sitting in emotions to understand it outside these groups and therapy.
So he is seeking help and he is moving along. There's no magic cure. There's nothing that we can give a pill for or wave a wand that says you're done. They have to keep doing the work that they're doing. So, and this is moving toward disclosure, right, Tammy?
Yes.
Yeah, so he is revisiting everything he can possibly think of in his mind that he has done or said, if he's really being honest about having a full disclosure. And that sometimes what I'll always say is, once they process, then they may be, I'm 3 years, I've been doing it like this, blah, blah, blah. But it comes back and then there's like, oh, I forgot about something. So that they're really working through that to make sure they tell you the truth. That's, if that's what the full disclosure is about. And it can get very confusing and definitely needs to have support in how he's moving along and processing. That's why I think it's important to have a therapist working with both people, like 2 different therapists working with both people, or if you're in a town where you can't do that, I get it. But one, to help the partner or spouse be prepared and for a full disclosure, and 2 is to help things move along for the person that is going to do the disclosure and help them do that. And I will really recommend, because I see this all the time, so I'm recommending as a human being to another that don't go reading through the notes the person is putting together if they're getting prepared for disclosure. Please give them that time to do it and not be looking at the notes that they're putting together, because it's only going to escalate things and then there will be no disclosure at that point in time. So I've seen that occur, which, it's as much as you want to, it has to be the process that the therapist is using, working with your husband or partner or spouse.
That's great advice. And I hear too many times where people have, it's so traumatizing, and Partners
Mhm.
think they need to know this. And I'm like, and if you find it, you need information, but finding it
Right.
out in a non-therapeutic way is more traumatizing and really sets the partner
Exactly.
back. I wanted to speak to you. It's been 3 months and it feels like eternity to you, especially during COVID, no doubt. But you're looking at a person who has no emotional empathy and no ability to connect, has been compartmentalized and isolated and, pushing things away. Empathy is a skill that we learn, and it takes time, and it takes us, starting to go, oh, that face looks unhappy. I should be,
Mhm.
how am I going to, I see that you're unhappy, please tell me more, and it's going to feel like a robot at first because everything is compartmentalized and, I don't want to feel anything. So
Right.
it's going to take time. You're like lots of good things there. Disclosure soon, working with that, have support for you. I hope you've got a really good support therapist. Join
Mhm.
the pro-dependent aligned betrayed partner groups. We've got another one Wednesday at 12:30 p.m. Pacific time.
That'd be great.
Join
That
it.
would be great.
Yes,
Yeah.
you'll get support. So, okay.
Yeah.
Next question. So much of my recovery has been focused on stopping addictive sexual behavior, and it saved my life. However, I'm wondering if there's any 12-step program or recommendations you have for developing a healthy sexuality, a program treatment that is focused on exploring and developing my sexuality, not just stopping bad things. Any advice?
One is if you're working, again, if you're working with a therapist and you're not acting out, then you're changing inside. But you have to, it's like, and don't take any offense to what I'm saying, it's much like a child that's been taught, this is how you do something. Well, now you're putting the brakes on it and saying, no, I want to be in recovery, I want to do this right. But someone needs to help you understand what healthy sexuality looks like for you. Not for Tammy, not for me, but for you individually, because it's a very individualized process. The other thing is when they're working on healthy sexuality is to work on communication skills, because that's so important with intimacy, is that two people can really communicate with one another and therefore create a more intimate relationship. So I would be looking and making sure that you're doing both of those because they come together beautifully and help you become whole.
Yeah, Dr. Rob has talked often about it isn't just, it isn't just, so I'm sober, meaning I haven't had sex in 10 years,
Right.
it really is about, healthy connection. So having a plan for dating, like, so take a step back. What is healthy sex? But what is
Right.
dating? How do you start that? What is the next thing? Dr. Rob has shared on previous webinars. I'd invite you to go look, but he had a group that told him, that isn't a good person for you. That is a good person for you. And, but
Mhm.
it's back it up 3 steps. What do you need to do to have a healthy relationship with somebody before you explore what that it is like sexually? So
Right.
get a posse. Okay, next question. Do sex addicts ever stop sexualizing others, or is this lifelong?
I would love to tell you this lifelong. Um, I
You would
do
love to
know
say
that,
that it's lifelong?
yeah, that I mean, when we're saying sexualizing, now I don't mean acting out with them, but I mean having a sexual thought. Is that
Okay.
what we're
Yeah.
talking about? Yeah.
I'm
I believe the more integrated you are with people in recovery and that you are sharing any thought, any feeling, any whatever is going on, then the more you're going and the longer you're going to be able to be in recovery and not sexualize, or I call objectifying, if that's the same thing we're talking about, is objectifying others and using the tools. We usually have a thing, any place I've ever been, it's about saying it again, saying it faster. Hey, I just had a thought. I just saw this person. I mean, it's like right there in that moment. And then the thought goes on and moves on with it. So if sexualizing means objectifying, then yes, it can be lifelong, as long as you have people that you can be honest with. Otherwise, you're just spinning in your own head.
And I was thinking, I think like we were talking about with the triggers, like you may have that thought zip across your brain, but you don't
Right.
hold on to it,
Mhm.
but if But, you know, Dr. Rob has talked about this too. It's data. If like all of a sudden I'm going, wait, I'm starting to objectify that person. I'm not seeing, you know, him or her as a person, as somebody's son or daughter, or, you know, a mother, father, whatever. I'm just thinking, oh, you know, what's going on for me? And those of us in recovery, you know, have the ability to go, you know, okay, oh wait, I was all upset, you know, because I had, you know, a fight with my colleague the other, and whatever, you know, like,
Right.
but we know it isn't that, it's this.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't spend time doing that. We know that isn't healthy to hang on to. So while a thought might be fleeting, you know, in a sexualized, objectifying way, you know, it's
Mm-hmm.
like the 3 second you go, nope, gonna get rid of that and go do something positive to deal with whatever it was that was stressing me out in
Right.
the first place. So.
And it's practicing it and being honest. I can't say that enough. It's practicing and it's being honest about when the practice is not working. Because there's a lot of people there's tools all over of how to deal with it and other ideas that people have and stuff like that. So it's ask the questions of your peers that are in recovery, how to help and how to add more.
Next question. My husband started watching porn 20 years ago as a teenager, started as once in a while, but it has escalated in the last 6 years to more inappropriate viewing, but nothing off screen, no chatting, no, just watching. He says no
Right.
trauma. That's so typical. We hear that all the time. So
No trauma.
yeah. Everybody says, oh, I didn't have any trauma. And then we start unpacking things and go, okay, no abuse, just, you know, starts out as curiosity and just escalated. Have you seen such an addict without a traumatic trigger? If so, is it harder to help them since no trauma to work on?
I would not say that it's harder to help them. It's just harder to get to a place of them seeing, if you don't want to call it trauma, but you want to call it life events, or maybe I was bullied, maybe I was rejected, maybe I'm sort of gangly and not, you know, in the best shape in high school and people laughed and made fun of me. Well, those are those core issues that we talk about. So when the core issues are coming up, whether it's tied to anger or hurt or pain or whatever it is, until I am able to do something with that. Like I have to tell myself all the time, this, I'm not one of those people that is just like, oh, everything's been great for 40 years. No, it's like there's a lot of days I have to say, shut up, Karen. So that the addict is still alive. It's still there. It's still around. But I just have to say, shut up, go away. I'm not listening to this today. And I know it may sound crazy, but it's me telling myself, you don't want to go there. And, you know, and then sharing with somebody that, you know, hey, this is getting worse. And I'm talking to myself looking like a crazy person in the car a lot. So, but it works. So
yeah, but owning it is like, it's huge for me too. It's like I have to own it right off the bat. So, but it can be as simple as like parents were, you know, self-absorbed, you know, so there wasn't the space to be, you know, why was looking at porn, you know, a teenager. Now that can be you know, normative, so to speak, in today's. They've even done studies where just looking at the porn can be traumatizing. So there's probably more to the story. But we get, you know, guys in treatment all the time that I didn't have any, you know, abuse, abandonment, trauma, neglect, whatever. And yeah. So, okay.
And many times they, people run across porn, like say dad or mom, usually I hear father right now, has porn hidden somewhere and they run across it. And so natural things go on and they're looking at porn and then they're stashing it and then it becomes the secret and it stays a secret and just builds and grows. So it doesn't have to be a physical trauma event that occurs, but it means that you were probably sexualized early by seeing porn and want to go see it again, and continue on with it.
So we're going to thank you for all these great questions. And we're going to do one more and then we're going to have to leave. So there's going to be a bunch and I'm sorry that we won't get to them, but come back. So what determines an addict's arousal template? My husband's choice of porn typically consisted of Asian and African American women, and I'm neither of those races. Why didn't he just marry someone of that race if that's what he preferred? So thoughts on arousal templates and what you look at in porn?
To answer that, the arousal template starts just like, if I like something to eat and I'm satisfied at this level. Well, then all of a sudden, you know, that dessert wasn't so good, so I need to make sure that I add more sweet so it comes up to here, and then I'm happy. And then that gets old, and then I have to go up here. I would imagine that either there's something with the choice that he's looking at, or that he had a much lower arousal template, and now that's just sort of in the specialty area that he's in, and it will continue to change or grow or another addiction add. So it may not just be the culture or ethnicity of a person. It may be that there's a variety, or he visited those places. I don't know, that type of thing. But yes, it's part of the arousal template, and it could change again.
Yes. And so exploring that with a qualified person would be really
Exactly. Would be
So
very good.
we're out of time. We've got another meeting that will be starting. The cruise control drop-in group for men will be starting in just a few minutes. So I'm going to thank my colleague and dear friend Karen. So appreciate this. We're going to do this again because we're going to make time to do this again. So yeah, this is fun.
We
So
are.
thanks
Okay.
everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye everybody.